And there she is. Hi, Kaylee.
Hello, Chris. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. A little hot.
It is a little hot. Definitely, summer has arrived
It's
early.
it came in force today. I think it's going to cool down again for the weekend, though, so I'm looking forward to that. But as this warm weather has rolled in, I know a lot of people are getting back out on the water. Of course, all our restrictions and all that have pretty much disappeared for boating, with some minor exceptions. So it's been nice. It's been a welcome change.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Definitely.
I know we're competing with our governor tonight, but looks like we got a nice audience right now, and so the Larrys are competing. I think I know, which gets my vote right now. But hold on one second, and you can introduce our guest.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We are very excited to have Larry Lauterbach in the studio with us tonight. So Larry is a well-known boat builder in the Chesapeake. He was also a powerboat racer for many, many years. And, we hope that you guys will bring some good questions. So why don't we get Larry in here?
Hey there.
Hey, Larry. How's it going tonight?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good.
So Larry, why don't we jump right into it? Most people have heard of Lauterbach boats, but they might not know how it started. When did that all kind of begin?
Well, actually, the first Lauterbach boat started in the early 40s. My father, Henry Lauterbach, built Hampton One sailboats.
Real?
Racing sailboats. Hampton One designed racing sailboats. And then after being very successful in that for 4 or 5 years, a gentleman approached him about building an inboard hydroplane. He said, Henry, can you build an inboard hydroplane? And of course, if you knew my dad, well, yeah. So anyhow, he started building the hydroplanes in 1947. And I started working with him, getting in his way when I was a kid. And my last 2 years of high school, I worked in the boat shop with the work program at school. And then right out of high school, we started working full time. And then in 1966, I was drafted, and I had to go to tour of duties. I pulled 2 tours of duty in Vietnam. So I joined the Seabees, which is a construction branch of the Navy, the construction work. So that was a 2-year separation from working and racing. I'd already started racing before that. And then when I got back in July of '68, I went right back full time building the boats with my dad and started my racing career again.
Awesome. And who were you primarily building these boats for? Were racers, approaching you guys like, I want a Lauterbach boat to race?
Well, back in when I got involved in building was in the '60s. It was blue collar workers, and we had rich people. But it's amazing that back those days, a lot of people built their own boat. They tried building their own boat. You go to the races, and probably a third of the boats in the pits were built by the individual, and the other ones were built by professional boat builders. And back in the '60s, on the East Coast, I'm talking about, we had the Lauterbach boats, we had the Will Farmer boats, we had the Charlie Lloyd boats, we had the Dick Suey boats. So you had a variety of boat builders that you could choose from. Then on that west, they had Ron Jones and Ed Carlson and probably missing a few out there, but anyhow, they had 2 or 3 boat builders on the west coast as well. Fred Wickens was out of Arizona, so there was a bunch of inboard hydroplane builders that you could choose from. And then later on, John Stoddard came along. They started building the what we call the cab over design, the rear engine, the engine put behind the boat. We were the last ones to build cab overs. We didn't. My dad said, "Well, the damn boat don't know where you're sitting, where the engine's sitting." And he was right, and we kept proving that. We'd build conventional boats, and I'd go out there and compete and beat the cab overs, or compete with them, be equal to them. So it was a challenge. But then I started getting offers to drive other people's boats, and I drove some cab overs. And I said, heck, this is easy to drive one of these, compared to what I was doing. So it kind of, being a boat builder and racing on the Lauterbach boats probably held me back from the unlimited class because they all thought that I wouldn't drive anything but a Lauterbach. So then I started driving some Stodikers.
Mm-hmm.
I set 2 world records with Alan Watermeyer 7-liter Stodiker, and then I got a call to drive the Cellular One boat out of Seattle, Washington, unlimited boat. It was a Cambo, Jim Massaro boat, and then we changed. When I got full board, we got Winston involved with hydroplane racing. Back then, they were NASCAR or NHRA.
Mm-hmm.
And we hired a marketing guy, and he got his foot in the door. We got our foot in the door with RJ Reynolds Tobacco, and I was the first driver that ever drove for RJ Reynolds. Later on, they started sponsoring NASCAR and NHRA cars. Usually, they would just sponsor the events. They sponsored NASCAR and they sponsored National Hot Rod Association, but they didn't sponsor any vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
I was the first vehicle and the first driver that they ever sponsored. Pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
And won their first race for them in 1989 on the Ohio River, the Thunder on the Ohio, with the Winston Eagle unlimited hydroplane. So,
wow. So how old were you when you first started racing?
Legally, I first started when I was 15, but you're not supposed to race until you're 16.
Okay.
So when I started driving, believe it or not, when I was 12 or 13 years old, there was a customer right here in Kent Island, Maryland, that we built a boat for. A guy named Billy Ruth, and he was good friends with the Baker family here. And my dad built Billy a brand new boat, and every time he would come down to see the progress on it, he'd throw me his car keys at 14 years old and say, Larry, go park my car. Well, his car was already parked. He wanted to drive something. Long story short, when his boat was completed, we took it to the river to test it, and he said, Larry, you want to drive it? And my eyes got so big, and I couldn't wait to jump in that thing at 14 years old. And I've been going at it ever since. So I started racing when I was 16, full time.
Mm-hmm. And Larry, we actually just had a question from a reader come in. Do you have a favorite boat out of all the boats you have driven?
Yeah, well,
I know that's a tough
hard to say. But Bobby Murray's National Mod boat was awesome. It was like I say, I never lost a race with that boat in 2001. But then I had in my prior years, the Grand Prix boats, and John Stauffer and I had 2 race boats, the Edelweisses. And then I got involved with Don Ryan out in Seattle, Washington, and I set 2 world records for that boat. So it's hard to say what was my favorite, but probably my all-time favorite was Bobby Murray's Lauterbach Special.
Okay. And I know over the years you were telling me that you've won a lot of awards and you've been inducted into the Hall of Champions. Could you tell us about that?
Well, Hall of Champions is they used to call it the Gulf Marine Hall of Fame, and then somebody decided they want to change it to Hall of Champions. But the American Powerboat Association is our sanctioning body, and they put in about 2 drivers every year out of each category. We got inboard category. We got the outboard category. We got the offshore. We got the unlimited. So each category they'll put in about in the outboards they got stock outboards, modified outboards, tunnel boats. So, but in long story short, they put about 2 drivers out of each category, and I was fortunate enough to be inducted in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. So I had a long career.
And when did you retire from racing?
2005. I ran 2005 part-time with Bobby Murray, and then we parked the boats. And I just told Bobby it was, and I'm not bragging, but we had no competition. It wasn't fun going there just running around with 2 or 3 boats.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody could run with us on the East Coast or the West Coast. So then we just decided to park the boat. And then about 4 or 5 years later, a couple of guys came over from Seattle in the same class we were in.
Mm-hmm.
And they said they came by my shop after the Kent Island race, and they were top dog. They had to roll. They didn't have my record in it. But anyhow, they said, "Look, we need some competition. You need to come out of retirement." I said, "No, I'm not coming out of retirement." They said, 2 inches sitting over there covered in dust. And the Nationals were 2 weeks later in Hampton, Virginia. So anyhow, they left, and I got to thinking about it. And I said, maybe we should give them a little competition. So I called Bobby Murray up, the owner. I said, Bobby, what are you doing this weekend? He said, what do you mean? I said, how about bringing that boat to Richmond? He lives in Raleigh. You're halfway. He said, what? You come out of retirement? I said, no, the boat is. I'll put another driver in it, but we're going. These guys are getting a little too big for their britches out there in Seattle. And so, long story short, we threw the motor back in there. It's been sitting on my floor for 5 years. And I freshened it up, went through the valves and kind of tuned it up a little bit. We put Chuck Miller in there from Annapolis, Maryland. I'd never driven a national mod before, but I knew he was a good driver. I knew I'd raced against Chuck in other classes. And we took that thing down there and put a spanking on the boys from Seattle. And just said, well, if you want some competition, then you got it.
That's awesome.
In fact, that year, the team put Chuck in the Hall of Champions. He'd never been in the Hall of Champions in his life. Never won a Nationals until he got in that black boat. And so that was pretty cool. That was worth bringing it out of retirement to see Chuck have success. And God bless him. We just lost him about 2 months ago. He died unexpectedly about 2 months ago. So
sorry. What was the name of that boat?
Same boat. It's Mergers, which stands for Murray Jr. Mergers Lauterbach Special. It's National Modified 200. If you look over my shoulder, well, it's over there. You can't see it. But that boat right there, that black boat, that boat is awesome. And I don't know what Bobby's ever going to do with it, but he'll probably never sell it. It's been retired, like me.
So over the years, did you ever have any, like hairy moments, like a near miss or a crash?
I had some real deals. I didn't have a real miss. When I got back from Vietnam, I just thought, if I didn't die over there, these Raceboats would be a piece of cake. And I built myself a 225 class hydroplane. And in Hampton, Virginia, on Labor Day of '69, it had gone in partnership with a guy named Charlie Dunn, because we were building Charlie a 266 at the time. But I said, Charlie, I can finish mine now in about 3 weeks. Yours will be first of the year. So he bought an engine for my boat, and we took turns driving it. And he blew it over on Saturday, but it did a complete 360 and landed on his bottom, so it didn't hurt it a whole lot. And I jumped in it. Didn't hurt him either. Knocked him a little silly. And I jumped in it and won the final heat, and I tied the world record. So I said, you know what? I'm going to get me a world record tomorrow. So I went home that night, and I changed propellers, put some weight up ahead of the motor, took 20 pounds of sand, and rebalanced the boat. And I was out front for 2 laps. And 3 miles over the world record, and it took off on me and blew over. And, they called my mother down from Richmond, Virginia, for last rites that night. They thought I was dying.
Wow.
And I said, it's not that bad. But anyhow, I had broken ribs, broken spleen, broken ankle, about 8 broken ribs, and my blood count had dropped way off. But I came out of it and survived and continued racing. About a month later, maybe 2 months later, it was a pretty bad spill. And then I had another little accident about a year later, 1970. I blew another boat over down in Raleigh and cut my legs up real bad. And then I went like 30 years without a blow over. I got pissed out of one every now and then. No wrecks. And that was the Bobby Murray boat in 2003. I kind of snap rolled it. I was just, we had waited for an hour to start the race because it was white capping. And finally said, okay, you can go. Well, it was the same as it was an hour before that. I was out front, and I slowed down and tried to make a race out of it. And a couple other boats caught up to me. So when I got to get after it again, it fell on a hole, and I just snapped rolled. But it was my fault for slowing down. I haven't had any serious accidents since 1970. So I've been real lucky or real good.
Yeah, that's a good record. Nothing serious in 30 years.
Yeah. Grand Prix boats, what's the fastest inboard class? I've never had an accident with any of those. Limited boats. I never flipped one of those.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty lucky.
Yeah, yeah. So from your years of racing, what was kind of one of your favorite aspects of the sport?
Well, the favorite aspect was I made a living at it.
Oh, yeah.
but other than that, no, the sport itself, it's a great way for families to get involved. We all get along with each other, wives, kids, everybody plays around on the shoreline of the beaches, and so it's just a cool family atmosphere. And I have met some of the greatest people and have made the best friends in my life and what I do for a living.
That's really great.
Yeah.
So, let's see. So when, if we can shift back to the boat building, when did you start shifting from building competitive race boats to more, what you're doing these days in the shop?
Well, Bobby Murray's boat was the last real race boat. I mean, it's all composite. That was 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And I built 5 carryovers, and 4 of them were composite boats. And the sport is just dying. I hate to say it, the economy didn't help any. And then they started mandating these safety features, enclosed cockpits, and got to have the right fire suit on. You got to have the right air system. You got to have this. It costs you $3,000-$4,000 to suit up, man, to drive one.
Mm-hmm.
The average, blue collar worker can't afford that. And so they should have never allowed composites in boat racing because it ran the cost up so high that there's one guy in Canada that I can't compete with price wise, and I'm not going to. And he builds them a lot cheaper, and he builds a good boat. But he's the only one that's building boats right there. It's gone. I'm doing most of my vintage stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's just the cost has gotten so high, and we don't have any race sites. We've gone from 30 or 40 races in my region to down to about 2, and it's just unfortunately our sport is dying off. And now the vintage part is picking up. What I'm doing now, taking people are bringing me older Lauterbach boats, and I'm restoring those.
Mm-hmm.
We have a vintage category, and then I designed this 2-seater deal, and I built 6 of these. I put side by side people in a inboard hydroplane with water cooled exhaust, transmission. So it's pretty cool. You can idle around and talk to each other. You can get after it and go 40 or 50 miles an hour,
Mm-hmm.
or 20 miles an hour, however fast you want to go.
Yeah, and so that's the is that the Lauterbach special?
Yeah, well, I built several of them. I built the Lauterbach special, then I built Merger's Lauterbach special, then I built a boat called Blue Water, different names. Catch Me If You Can, and the American Thunder. I just finished it up for Joe Bullock out in California, but he hadn't been able to come pick the boat up because of the shutdown in the country.
Mm-hmm. And your 2-seater, it's not a race boat. Like it's designed for a pleasure.
It's not a race. It's a pleasure boat.
Okay.
You don't need to wear a helmet. You put a life jacket on, go cruising around in it. You go bar hop if you want.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a transmission. You can put it in reverse to back it up. It looks like a race boat.
Mm-hmm.
It's designed like one.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
The concept is it's a pleasure boat,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we're trying to sell.
Oh, looks like we got another reader question here.
Yeah, Georgia Speed Skip. Ever want to build one? No, I actually was going to build one, David, and I was told that they couldn't build a one-off or something like that. They had to, so I never did. But no, I've never driven one and never been in one. Thank you for asking. Tom Jeanette, do you like racing in Valleyfield? There is no other place to race but Valleyfield. Valleyfield was the ultimate race. If you won at Valleyfield, you've had a good year. And I was fortunate enough to be successful quite a bit in Valleyfield. And it's in Quebec, Canada, of course, if people didn't know that. But I was the first driver to ever win. They used to have the Grand Prix class was the featured class, and then they would have an invitational race after the Grand Prix winner. They would put 8 more Grand Prix back on the water. and have what they call the Invitational. So they had 2 winners up there. Up until they haven't done it in the last 4 or 5 years. But in 1977, I was the first driver to win both events, and set a precedent because usually they didn't invite the Grand Prix winner. They wouldn't invite him. It was Invitational.
Mm-hmm.
When I won the Grand Prix in '77, they said, "Larry, we want you to run the Invitational." I said, "I'd love to run it myself, but I'm not allowed to." "Larry, we want you in the Invitational." So they invited me to run it, and I won it. So then they had to keep inviting the winners after that. Myself and 2 other guys have done that. Tom Dees with the down Ryan's boat, another Lauterbach.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there's 1 more. I think maybe just 2 of us. Yeah, it seems to me like it was the 3rd driver that won both events, but I can't recall right now.
So what do you have currently going on in your shop? What boats are you working on?
Well, I'm building frames now for another one of my 2-seaters going to Toronto, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
A guy named Ian Bogey. And then I'm restoring a Ventnor hydroplane that was built back in 1947. I'm restoring that for a gentleman down in Georgia. And I got one of my dad's old boats in there. The Mr. Soda was built in the mid-50s. That has been jumped around, and it was restored in Ohio. And the gentleman who owns it now wants me to put it back the way it looks, just like an old Lauterbach. Whoever restored it didn't know how to build a Lauterbach, and it doesn't look like one. So I got those 3 projects going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. And how long, give or take, does it take you to build one of your 2-seaters?
If I could stay right on it, Kaylee, I could probably do it in 4 to 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
It takes me 6 or 7 months because I get knocked off doing a 2-week job here, 2-week job there, off around the golf here, around the golf there.
Mm-hmm. And how often do you see, boats that were built by your father? Like, how often do people bring those to you?
Quite often. Like I said, the one I got in there now was just brought to me last week. It's kind of slowed down because I've got all of them rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that I've restored and all. I've restored probably 20, 25 of my dad's boats. And it's been fun to see how he built boats. I've got my cousin Bill Lauterbach and bought the oldest Lauterbach in existence. And when I started taking it apart, my dad had already passed away, and I wanted to get on his butt and see, man, what are you doing building a boat like this? But he was learning. He was just like, that boat was built in probably 1950 or 51. And but anyhow, it's pretty rewarding to put something back together that my dad built, and then it's kind of got both of us in it then. So
yeah, that's really special.
Really special.
So one thing we often hear from people to their, you're saying that the sport of powerboat racing is dying off a little bit. If someone wanted to get into racing for the first time, do you have any advice for them where they might want to start?
Well, if you're coming into the sport fresh, you need to get a used boat and get into a smaller class, like a 2.5 stock, or maybe a T boat, which is all stock with small engines in them. But and just see if you like it.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have a school out in Dayton, Ohio every year. American Powerboat has driving school. They have one on the West Coast, one on the East Coast. But you can go to these sites and pay to take a ride in an inboard hydroplane, and they're 100-mile-an-hour boats. These are 5-liter boats.
Mm-hmm.
And you could go out there and drive that and see if you like it. You can get involved that way. But I recommend you buying a used boat, and if you're fortunate enough, you got a friend that's got a boat, let him or her allow you to take a ride in their boat. So, but it's kind of hard. I mean, I was, because I was born and I was testing customers' boats all the time, so I was fortunate enough to have the availability of Henry Lauterbach and his boat, and customers who knew me. So
yeah,
worked out real well.
Well, looks like we got another question from Tom.
Best driver I ever raced against. Boy, that'd be tough. That's
I know, I'm sure that's a tough one.
I race against. Well, there's so many. There's so many good guys. Tommy DeEast, Chip Hanauer, Dave Vilwalk, all these guys that ran the unlimited boats. Then there are the Baker brothers, the Wheeler and Tom Baker, and Teddy Baker. I mean, there's so many. But the best I've ever raced against, Robert Cigarette. Actually, I never ran against Robert. I sold him my boat, Doug. Doug Massengale on that. But Robert was a great driver, but I never raced against Robert. There's a lot of good drivers that I didn't race against that I consider good drivers.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy Robert Cigarette, he bought the Edelweiss from John Stauffer, and I never raced against him. Third guy to win both was Pierre. Okay, thank you, Mark. I knew there was a third one in there. There you go. Thank you.
It looks like here we got another question from Doug. Your best unlimited experience? I guess he means best unlimited hydroplane experience.
Well, that would be winning the Thunder on Ohio in 1989 with the Winston Eagle unlimited hydroplane. We won that race. And it was hot. I passed out with heat exhaust in one heat.
Whew.
And they gave me some. It was about 110 degrees. But the best experience of winning one I didn't bring home was Syracuse, New York, that I won the race, and then they took it away from me. Said I changed lanes before the start of the race.
Oh no!
And I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the video 100 times, and I may have moved over half a lane, but there was 3 lanes to the next boat.
Mm-hmm.
And Tommy DeEast and I went deck to deck in that heat. And then he was driving the Miss Budweiser, and I was driving the Winston Eagle. And as far as I'm concerned, in fact, my owner, Steve Wilmer, paid me first place money. He said, Larry, you won the race fair and square.
Oh, wow.
But that was my worst experience. And then the best was when we won the race in Evansville, Indiana.
Do you miss racing?
I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the competition. And once in a while, I'll say, you know what? I'll come out of retirement just for the hell of it. But I know I can't do it anymore like I used to. I mean, your reflexes, your eyesight, everything is just. I could get in one behind my shotgun and go test it. I ain't doing that. But as far as going racing again, no, I'm done.
Yeah, we just have. We race the cocktail class boats, but one of these days I want to get into a faster boat, so I'll be giving you a call one of these.
We'll find you a good ride. Come to the vintage events and take a ride on one of those first, and they're a good experience. And then you see, because nowadays you're all encapsulated, and you got to have air, and and that kind of scares a lot of people, but it's got claustrophobia. But the vintage boats, that's all you're out in the open. So I'll take you for a ride in the 2-seater.
No, I'll be really looking forward to it.
And they're fun, and you get the sensation of speed.
Yeah, the fastest. I don't know how fast we were going. I did take a ride in a Jersey speed skiff, but not a hydroplane yet.
Well, I always kidded the people who have skiff. I said, if I can tow it behind my car faster than you racing on the highway, it's not a race boat. No, I have a lot of friends that have skiffs. I shouldn't be picking on them. But how about Packarduni? If you're watching me, I always kid this guy up in Chesapeake City, Maryland, about a half hour from my shop. And he's right now the guy to beat in skiffs. And I always kidded him. I said, he's Larry, you gonna watch me race today? I said, no, man, I'm gonna get a hot dog. I said, I go to hot dog with the skiffs are running. So I call them hot dog boats.
And what's his name?
Tom Packarduni.
Oh yeah, I interviewed him before. Yeah, Tom's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, real good guy.
I got the Sewell brothers here in Kent Island, and they're all good friends. I just joke with them. I just, I always like the import hydroplanes.
No, it's nice that there is so much camaraderie between the different. See, we have a question from Mario. If you can bring that up, Chris. He said, what place did you like to race the most and what class? And we
I have several favorite places. Valleyfield, Quebec, Canada was probably my favorite. outside of the United States, and then in St. Petersburg, Florida, in the United States. That was my favorite race course, was St. Pete. Set my first world record down there in 1977. But it was the best racetrack in the country. We set a lot of world records down there, and they always held their race in February, so people were snowed in, were down to get out and go racing. But Valleyfield and probably St. Pete, my two favorite.
Awesome. Excuse me. Well, it looks like if we don't have any other questions, let me just check from our readers. We have a couple nice comments from Mark. He said, "Congratulations for your and Henry's two great careers building and driving hydros." That's nice.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, here we go. Tom.
Thanks for the memory. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I know Chris is going to have to choose someone for our giveaway.
Yeah, that's a tough. I got a tough job.
A lot of good questions.
There's some great questions. We had a great crowd, actually.
Supposed to compete against the governor tonight.
Yeah. Let's see. So I just drew the names, and Doug Massingale, congratulations. Guess what you're doing this weekend? You're cleaning up. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, Doug, I'll send you an instant message here real soon, and just get your shipping address, and we'll get that out to you. But Larry, thanks very much. I thought this was fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I know.
My pleasure, and good to see you guys. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Magazine's been fabulous, and you guys did a good, nice deal tonight. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
And I hope everybody out there watching enjoyed it, and go by and pick up a issue of PropTalk Magazine.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't need to do the rest.
There you go.
But if you did enjoy this episode, folks, I do want to say please share it with your friends. This has actually been recorded, so if you know somebody that would have liked to have been here, you can go on our Facebook page, and they can check it out on there. We do this every time we do this. We'll post something to Facebook and let you know when the next episode's coming up. So make sure you like and follow our Facebook page, and we'll let you know what the next. It's usually on Wednesdays, but we'll let you know what the next topic is going to be, and join us then. So until then, again, thanks, Larry, thanks, Kaylee, and we'll see you again very soon.
All right. Bye, guys.
Good night.
Don't miss another Prop Talk video. Subscribe to our channel today.